Welcome back to a slightly different video from ourselves today here at Idiots with Microphones. We've had a lot of comments and a lot of questions asking us on social media, asking us through our YouTube videos about how we started a podcast and what would be our tips to anyone wanting to start a podcast in the future.
Yeah, so I think when we were thinking about starting our podcast, it would have been helpful at least to have a video like this to watch with all the information in the one place.
Just sort of highlighting the key areas that you need to focus on,
Yeah,
because it can be so many things you've got to sort of do that you get a bit lost. Sometimes you'll put a lot of effort into making a graphic, and then you'll get lost about how to use tags on your YouTube videos or other things like that you can't really understand until you start a podcast of your own. So our first key point when starting a podcast is to make sure that the quality is there. So if you look at the quality of our podcast now, after 6 episodes, and the quality of our podcast on the first one, there will be a very, very distinct difference on how we have slowly progressed. However, in that first podcast, that was the maximum quality available to us. So what we're saying is you just need to make sure that you're putting maximum effort into all your videos. Even if you can only export in 720, you can't reach the 1080p or however that may be, as long as you put maximum effort in, that'll be very, very clear.
I think steadying your expectations is probably a good idea, because everyone has this idea of like, oh, I'm going to start a podcast and this is what it's going to sound like. But probably when you film that first one and it's recorded, you might look back at it and go, oh my God, that's the last thing I want to put out for everyone to see. But you've got to start somewhere. So even probably Joe Rogan's first episode weren't great. So
somewhere. Yeah, as you said, you've got to sort of standardize your expectations. Yeah. So we wanted to come out and be boom. It's the whole next new thing, and we're the next vibe. We're exporting in 1080 and we're doing all the amazing things. But until you actually start doing a formal YouTube video and you realize all of the problems that you can come into and how that can really affect the quality of the video, you've just got to get into it. Even if you're not 100%, million% proud of that first piece of work, as long as you've put maximum effort in, just get it out, get the feedback, and just see what really your audience thinks. And from there, as you've seen from episode 1 to episode 6, how we've slowly progressed and just sort of got used to that sort of conforming
on camera sort of,
So our next key step in terms of growing a successful long-term podcast is consistency. Now, this comes down to upload schedules. This comes down to your social media platforms and everything that might sort of be incorporated within your podcast brand.
Yeah, so consistency, I think it's important. Sometimes you'll be like feeling, oh, I don't know, I'm not feeling it today. Not asked about putting out a video, but then you just need to crack on and keep grinding. And then sometimes you'll be like, oh, I just want to put more and more and more and more out. But that's also a problem. You just need to just take the foot off the accelerator.
Yeah. As we highlighted,
steady goes.
Yeah, steady goes, like a consistent
quality over quantity, not to be cliche, but
exactly, that's so important. And it also goes both ways as well. So don't go too away from the scene. So if you feel like you don't want to record, that's fine. But also, if you keep that up for 1 week, 2 weeks, and 3 weeks, if you've just launched a brand new YouTube channel, you want to keep it sort of up to date, sort of as much as possible. Otherwise, you're going to get behind and you're going to get put to the bottom of that algorithm for being an inactive channel. And it's going to be hard to get back out of that rut. So as Sam said, it's really important to not overproduce, but it's really important to not underproduce. And that goes for social media posts or YouTube videos or just anything where you're engaging with your audience. Got to keep a consistent method just so you're always on a level playing field.
The next point when thinking about starting a podcast, I think, is equipment. Me and Adam didn't have many ideas when it came to how to use mics, cameras, editing software, even to go as far as. But if you type in podcast equipment on Amazon, you'll find pretty much everything that you could need. The one thing I would stress, though, is spending high will not equal, necessarily.
Yeah, like the high cost doesn't always come with the high quality. Like some of the equipment, for example, the stuff we use is nowhere near the most expensive on the market.
Exactly.
For example, this mic with this arm For me, Sam, with all the green screens and everything, comes to around like £150 around there. So, and there'll be some mics with some stands that'll be $200, $300 on their own. So for us, I think, as Sam said, high cost doesn't equal high quality. However, low cost can sometimes mean low quality. So you've just got to find a sort of a very, very fair.
You've got to remember, it doesn't have to sound like a platinum winning record album.
Yeah.
It just has to sound good enough that people can listen to it or whatever.
Yeah, and
as long as it's bearable, then
basically you've got to think is, would you sort of want to listen to that audio? So if you press on a random YouTube video, for example, a top 5 tips on how to start a podcast, would you hear that audio and think, and press on another video? Or would you hear it and be like, yeah, I am fine to listen to this and that is perfectly acceptable to me? So yeah, just make sure you do your research and make sure you look around. We will leave links to our mics, our green screen. And I use Adobe Premiere Pro, which we can leave a link to download below. However, it is a subscription-based service. So point number 4 for starting a podcast, just like me and Sam have done, is we would like you to focus on your clarity of speech. So that doesn't just come down to speech, it comes down to hand movement, because if you look in the first episode and you look in the 6th episode of our podcast, you can see the differences where I'm sat back in my seat and my audio quality is really passive, or I'm talking over this way, and I'm talking over this way. And sometimes it's just really inconsistent. So if you try to be clear and enunciate, be clear into the microphone and use some good body language, and that will really be shown across your viewers and they'll be a lot more engaged.
And although everyone likes an accent, sometimes people from different areas can't really understand what you're saying. So not to disown your accent in any way, but sort of act as if you're talking to someone you never met before, rather than, even though you are like, that's what I mean.
Friend or something like that. Sometimes I can go all sort of like a mumbo jumbo and words just fall out. But when I do a podcast, I make sure I just slow myself down slightly so it can be heard by the viewer. And that just goes for any accent. I mean, ours could be strong or it could even be weak, but just make sure you're making a slight sort of conscious decision to enunciate your words and use good body language to really get that across to the audience.
I think the final point to just touch on is you've got to at least have a passion for what you're doing. You can't half-arse it. Do you know what I mean? If this isn't really what you want to do, forget the other 4 points. This is like the most important point. It's not going to go anywhere if you don't even like what you're doing. How are people meant to enjoy watching you do it? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. I think having a sort of passion for what you do is really, really pivotal to your success. As Sam said, you can sort of completely negate the previous 4 points if you don't enjoy your own content. If me and Sam are putting out videos about things we knew nothing about, things we've never had an interest in, that would be super, super visible within all our videos and all the comments and all of the feedback. That's why we talk about things like football or sports or things going on in the business world, because that's what we enjoy. So just make sure, as a fundamental, this last point is the most important. You need to enjoy your work, otherwise the viewer is never going to enjoy your work. So thank you for watching our top 5 tips on how to start a podcast. We have only been doing this for a small amount of time ourselves, so everything will be taken with a tiny pinch of salt. But for us, these are the things that have worked, and these are the things we've really focused upon to get the best results possible within such a short period of time. So I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching. Make sure you drop a like and subscribe to help us with the YouTube algorithm. We'll make sure we leave links to all of our equipment that we use, our green screens, and we will leave the contact information for the person who did our original graphics in case you want to get in touch and do anything of your own. So thanks again so much for watching.
Yeah, thanks again for watching.
Peace out.
Neil.
Head goal, man.
Just need to project like nature. You go. Mate, I don't even know where to start. So I think the next point to take into consideration if you think about starting a podcast is equipment. Me and Adam didn't have much of an idea when we started the podcast. Fucking hell. Lad, what?
I can see you trying to laugh halfway through the sentence. Your like cheeks were getting more and more smiley as you were saying it.